Pricing in WordPress often feels like a settled debate. Subscriptions are king, recurring revenue is the only path, and anything else is framed as a mistake. But that narrative leaves out the founders who are actually thriving by doing the opposite. Today, we're digging into why one-off pricing model can work and what most people get wrong when they dismiss it, and the trade-offs that you need to understand before choosing your own path.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights, product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Katie Keith.
And I'm Matt Cromwell.
So before we start, huge thanks to Freemius for stepping in as our exclusive growth partner. Freemius takes care of selling and licensing your software so that you can focus on building amazing products.
And a quick favor, before we jump in with our guest, can you take a quick second and help us out a little bit with just by clicking that subscribe button if you're on YouTube right now? Why? Because we are on a road to hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers. It's the easiest way for you to help us to just hit the subscribe button. And it only takes a second and it makes a big difference. So thanks so much.
And today we have Rodolfo with us to discuss whether it can ever be a good idea to sell products without a subscription. Hey, Rodolfo.
Hello, how you doing?
Well, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. Please tell everyone a bit about yourself.
Right, I'd say that everyone knows me as Rodolfo in the WordPress ecosystem. No one knows about my surname, which is Melogli, if you're really interested in that. Otherwise, I've been in the WordPress WooCommerce space since 2012. As over the years, became a WooCommerce expert. Specialized myself into posting snippets and tutorials on my Business Bloomer website. And now, after all these years, I managed to also get into the plugin business. And now I have 48 of them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But also, trying to do some other impactful stuff like conferences and memberships and, getting the whole WooCommerce work together, hopefully on my website or whatever it is, as long as we can work together towards a better future.
Nice. That's great. Well, I'm excited to jump into the topic because I think it might be for our audience a little bit controversial, honestly. So I'm hoping that you can educate folks on how you make this work for yourself. So let's jump in and talk about first. First up, I think what's really important is if you are here watching anywhere that we're live, feel free to use the comment section to ask your own questions and your own comments. We'd love to make you part of the show, essentially. Rodolfo, tell us a little bit about how you ended up choosing to build a product in the first place and why you chose to not do subscriptions.
Right, we could be here talking for about 10 years, but I'll try to be brief. First of all, many of you know probably that I'm not a developer. Like, I don't understand anything beyond PHP, JS, CSS, and HTML. So if you come to me and talk about CI, CD, Composer, Docker, GitHub integrations, and now like NCPs and agents, and I go crazy. Like, that's not my field. I am a civil engineer, like nothing to do with it. So my motto on Business Bloomer was, let's always publish like simple code snippets for the 99% of the people like me who might want to customize their WooCommerce website and make it better and convert it faster. And I've probably posted about over 500 code snippets up to today. And this is growing because I try to do it once a week anyway. And then on top of this, I've always hated subscriptions. And with these, I mean, I'm not a good subscription customer. Like yesterday, someone denied me a refund for renewal that I forgot to cancel, for example. This is, driving me crazy. And also, I don't like to sell subscriptions for the same reason. I don't want people to contact me because their card is expired, because they forgot to renew, because for several reasons. I hate churn. So it's both as a vendor and as a customer. Like, subscriptions is something that I really cannot stand. And then I said, you know what? I mean, there must be a way to make this a viable business without subscriptions, or is there a viable way to do it? I mean, I'm still searching for an answer, but hopefully today I'm going to give you some context about my, the way I work and how I do it, and why it still makes sense at the end of the day.
Yep. Love it. I actually saw you post that on X or Twitter the other day, that you didn't get them to reverse that subscription charge. Did they get back to you?
They did, and we're still dealing. We're still haggling. At the moment, they're offering me 50% refund, which, I mean, makes no sense. It's either yes or no to me. Yeah. I counter that email saying, right, I'll be okay with the refund minus fees. What about that? Given that I expressed the intent of canceling it and stuff. So we'll see. Hopefully I won't need to name names at the end of this, but it just drives me crazy.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think there's a lot of folks out there who sympathize with the pains of subscriptions, and folks like me that have built our whole business model around subscriptions. I'm constantly talking about best practices when it comes to helping your customers to want to renew every year and to make it a positive experience overall. But so the idea of charging once and hoping for the best, to me, is super scary. Yeah, but I'm excited to jump in and talk about that a little bit. Katie, what's your take overall on what Rodolfo is doing?
I think it depends very much on the product. So GiveWP is a good example of where you're providing a lot of ongoing support and value and update. It is a whole platform. To me, it would be kind of crazy to charge a low one-off cost for that type of product because of that ongoing value. How could you possibly afford it? But I don't think that's what Rodolfo is doing. So Rodolfo, could you talk a bit more about the types of plugins you're selling? And actually, what would your opinion be on if a platform like Give did have that?
Yeah, good questions. I mean, what we're talking today is not about huge platforms that we can compare to SaaS or, feature-rich plugins, because that makes it impossible to manage, makes it impossible to make it better, makes it impossible if you were just, lifetime offer. Well, unless it's well priced, by the way. So it makes, absolute no sense whenever it's something that really basically adds so many features and gives you so many benefits. In this case, for a WooCommerce website or whatever it is. So my rules for developing what I call my mini plugins, because otherwise it wouldn't be feasible from a business point of view, and also for for me, like, I'm not, again, a plugin developer, so I don't understand much of what's going on behind the curtains. I'm only able to start from a code snippet and turn it into a mini plugin. Now, what is a mini plugin? To me, a mini plugin is something that requires just a few hours of coding, hopefully just a couple of them. And where 99%, and we go back to the thing that we said a few seconds ago, my goal is that 99% of the support requests come on install day. So products like huge products like GiveWP or Barn2 plugins or whatever it is, like you would get constantly, support requests from customers over their lifetime. In my case, I'm trying to develop mini plugins that only require a reply when the customer has just purchased it and say, "Oh, it doesn't work." So that's the the maximum kind of support that I want to give to new customers.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
also, they will solve a single pain point, so they will come with a single feature and hopefully two settings and something that does not require maintenance. So this is unlike any other big plugin out there, which you would need to be there, constantly adding new features or improving the performance or adapting to the new, technology. In my case, I code it once and I forget about it, hopefully, unless WooCommerce deprecates stuff, which has just happened. And it's a plugin, it's a mini plugin that uses as few lines of PHP as possible. So I think I have some of them that are like 200 lines, and that's what I'm proud of these mini plugins. And also, I put everything into one file, and in this way, I have my packaged mini plugin that I can then sell for a low lifetime price. And at the end of the day, it makes sense because we're talking about quantity in this case. So I have 48 plugins. I don't have 2.
Oh, wow.
And I try to push on quantity purchases and making my life easier. And, at the end of the day, we will see this in 2 or 3 years' time if it was a viable business. So far, so good, given that this is not my main source of income, and I don't put 100% of my time onto mini plugins, but I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I think that's key, that they are simple plugins that don't require a lot of maintenance or ongoing support. So that's a good argument for how it is viable for you to sell small plugins for a small, low one-off cost. And I'm going to distinguish that from what I would call lifetime licenses in the modern sense, which, like at Barn2, we charge 3.5 times the annual price for lifetime because we've calculated how long people need support and all of that, and it's profitable. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about actually the old Theme Forest Code Canyon model, really, where it might be $39 or something for lifetime. And you're saying, yes, it's viable because it's small and it doesn't need a lot of support and maintenance. However, I would argue that that is about what you can afford to do. That is not necessarily a good argument to maximize your income, because, for example, at Barn2, we used to have some very small single function plugins like WooCommerce discontinued products, for example, that just adds a discontinued stock status. We've now sold that to Kestrel, who now have our smaller plugins. But even with a small plugin like that doesn't need a lot of maintenance or support, you can still get an annual amount of, say, $49 a year instead of one-off, release updates to declare compatibility with versions of WooCommerce. Maybe you don't add new features, that's okay, but you keep it running smoothly. And then you can build up that renewable ongoing revenue. And at Barn2, 66% of our revenue is renewals now. So I feel like your personal opinion might be making you leave money on the table. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's really fair. I mean, I'm coming from, my view that I hate subscription. So what I've tried to do here is to build a, kind of a side B product, because I mean, again, I'm doing other stuff during the day, so I'm trying to build, a spin-off where I don't want to have, admin. I don't want to waste time on admin. First of all, I don't want to waste time on updates and support. And to me, this is super lean. It's super fun, and I'm not stressing over support requests that drive me crazy, and I just issue refunds like after 5 seconds. I'm much faster now than I used to be a couple of years ago, but I learned that along the way. So if someone says, "Oh, this is not good, can I get a refund?" Yeah, just take it and forget about it and move to the next. But I'm definitely leaving money on the table, and that's for sure. I mean, even the fact that I'm not selling subscriptions, if one day someone comes over and say, I want to buy Business Bloomer, like, how am I going to price it? How am I going to basically define what the sell price could be if I don't sell subscriptions? But at the same time, I don't care. So I come from a point of view where I don't rely on this to to build 100% of my income. But also, if I had no other choice than just selling mini plugins and just concentrate on this, I would definitely think better, and I would definitely say, hold on, this is potentially scalable. And trust me, without subscription is still something that could scale.
Yeah.
I think I was taking a look at some of my stats the other day, and honestly, again, I don't check them, and only because I'm on this show, I went and took a look at the lifetime sales, and like last year, like I made 10K, and like I basically did nothing except for publishing some extra mini plugins and making it an actual revenue stream. And with that said, subscriptions are great and healthy for a business, but at the same time, I'm trying to spend way more time on the decision of whether that's a great mini plugin or it's not a great fit. Because if it's not a great fit, I'm going to drop it, and I'm going to concentrate on something that can be coded fast, that can be supported just on day one, and then that I can forget about it.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. There is actually, we have some great comments that we should highlight here soon. There is one precedent out there that some of our co-hosts were talking about this before the show a while back. There's that company, I forget the name of the company behind it. Once.com. Once was selling products for a one-time fee for a while. They have two products there. I think it's
Campfire.
There's a WriteBook. It's a book publishing platform, and also Campfire, and it's like a group chat, kind of like Slack alternative. And they were only, and the whole Once initiative was like exactly what you're saying. Subscriptions are such a bad customer experience sometimes. People forget about them. And nobody loves to deal with that kind of thing. And we all have subscription fatigue. Like, I can't even count all the subscriptions I have going right now. But we went and checked out the site again, and those two products are totally for free now. They're not selling them anymore at all. So in some ways, I think it's help me out. Who's the folks behind Once.com? I think it's
37 Signals.
Sorry, say it again, Rodolfo.
37 Signals. The
exactly. 47
Yeah.
Signals. Yeah, they're the ones behind it, and I think that they probably just decided that it was better as maybe a lead gen type of thing rather than an actual revenue stream for them. But they are a product company for sure. And like you said, you have other revenue streams that are your primary. And I think that 37 Signals, exactly. Ian's in the comments. Thanks, Ian. 37 Signals Basecamp, exactly. It is interesting to me still overall, and I do think of it a little bit more in the lifetime license camp a little bit, except for the caveat that you're saying that these are more like solving one particular problem. And there's definitely potential, though, that WordPress core at one point might solve that problem by itself, or that WooCommerce might solve that problem by itself. Or as we see core start to embrace AI in a really serious way, folks might solve all these problems with AI on their own. So I think that might be a future you got to take seriously too. So
Yeah,
but
I mean, already my code snippets on the website, they're getting way less traffic than they used to get a couple of years ago. So it's obvious that people are getting these fixes out of ChatGPT, Claude, and so on. And that's fine to me.
yeah,
However, like the other 95% of the people, mostly merchants and people who don't want to deal with, DIY code and, probably putting something on their live website that is not secure enough and they don't even know what they're writing, then that's still a good audience, still good at target market. And I think, especially when dealing with e-commerce websites, I mean, you can't really afford to, put a wrong comma somewhere on your custom code and break the whole site. So you need to be super careful.
yeah,
What I wanted to add is that for the wants products, I mean, those, Campfire and the other one, I mean, they were really complex,
yeah,
if we want to call them plugins, right? I mean, definitely they were, excuse me, definitely they weren't 200 lines of code. They were super, difficult to come up with, and loads of files and loads of screens and UX and UI and so on. So they were really, difficult to come up with from, my point of view. Remember, I'm not a developer. So I think that's why they failed in some way, which is they were giving them too much hassle in regard to support, for sure, in regard to people who wanted to customize those, because they said take the code, do whatever you want with it, and people then they were getting in touch with them. So my view is that if someone gets back to me, and I wanted to go back to Katie's opinion from earlier, which is you're leaving money on the table. I want mini plugins that do not require support, but maybe what I could do is that if someone wanted another support, some other help, I could then, ask them to buy a support package. And that would probably make a little bit more sense, because I'm trying to sell them the plugin. I'm expecting that the support is only on day one. But if the support comes back on day 200, then I've lost basically my money. So I basically wasted, one sale. So what I could do is offering, support packages, or just limiting the sale to, 1 month support or whatever it is. I mean, there's so many things that I could do, but I don't have the time to think about or to experiment about. And I could actually make it definitely a viable business. Now imagine if instead of 45, 48, 49 plugins today, I had 490, which is totally doable because I have 490 code snippets on my website already. So I just need to refine those at a setting screen and some cool, differentiation from the raw code snippet, and make it into a plugin. I could definitely have 500 mini plugins now for sale. And imagine, I mean, if that was the case, it could definitely be a viable business if I stuck with, the first day support and the low and no maintenance code.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how realistic no maintenance is, because WooCommerce changes things, and as you said, but I suppose it could be minimal if it's a simple plugin.
Yeah.
And hopefully your time in doing that maintenance would be covered by your future new sales, if not subscription. So it could still be viable if it was simple. But let's move to some comments now. So Ian says, charge more, Rodolfo. Very specific advice.
If you're only going to charge once, then maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, could do. Ian also asks, would you be as concerned with subscriptions if the refund policies were as generous on renewals as initial purchases? I was thinking the same thing when you were talking about your hatred of subscriptions. Just offer good terms, offer no questions asked refunds, and don't make it difficult. So it's not necessarily an argument not to do subscriptions if you are generous with refunds.
Yeah, of course. Lately, though, there is this kind of a trend of, offering partial refunds or refunds minus fees or whatever. Each company is different. Now, this one that I dealt with a couple of days ago. Apparently, in their TNCs, they have a no renewals refund policy. So,
Ouch.
I mean, you never know what you're gonna get, to be honest, whenever you purchase a subscription product in the WordPress ecosystem. Each one is different. Also, pricing. I mean, that's a big thing. Like, I started this 3 years ago-ish, and I don't come from a business background, not even a plugin development background. So I was pricing these things at like $9 or $14. And then I realized, hold on, this is not gonna work. So over the last few months, I increased, and I'm trying to connect with Ian now, try to increase my pricing, first based on demand, and second also based on the complexity of the plugins. So there are some plugins that require 200 lines, some others that will require 2,000 lines. So it took me longer to get them developed, and therefore it's going to cost a little more. But still, it's not going to, at the moment, no plugin is more expensive than $49, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm so skeptical about subscriptions for different reasons.
Yeah.
As this thing keeps coming back, and as a vendor, I wouldn't definitely want to deal with people emailing me or sending tickets to say, oh, I forgot, or this is not fair, or you said this and now you're doing that, or I don't want to use this any longer, and deal with churn and deal with all this kind of stuff. So for now, I feel like I'm still having fun. I still like, I don't need to worry too much about figures.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel good.
Yeah. I love that perspective, honestly, because we do talk with a lot of product builders and creators who their livelihood depends on their success, and it can get not fun under those circumstances. And I really think that when things are not fun, they start to make bad choices that are probably sometimes bad for the customer. And that definitely changes the dynamic a ton. Being able to do something because you love it and you want to do it is a luxury not everybody has, honestly. But I think that it changes the nature of the way that you build out your product and build out your customer base. And I'm sure it changes a ton your tone with your customers. When they reach out, I'm sure you are much happier to talk with them than if you weren't having fun. So I appreciate
no
that.
one likes defensive support.
Yeah.
So Ian says that Kestrel's terms also say they don't refund renewals, but they do anyways because sick emoji. Well, why don't you just say that you do renewal refunds then and not annoy people who read those terms?
I'm torn about it in general. Like, we definitely tried to crack down on our renewal refund rate a lot because we were sending multiple emails in advance of the renewal to let folks know, hey, this is coming, this is coming. Somehow they're reading their like credit card statements more often than they read their emails.
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Yep.
But it's like, this is something that you use. This is something that's on your website. We can see it. It's on your website. We can see it there. And we know you're getting value out of it. And we like gave you a heads up in advance, and then the charge came because it was supposed to. And it feels like now for you to make us do additional work to give you money back, it just it feels not quite like the balance is right under those circumstances. So I really sympathize with folks who say that they don't want to do refunds on renewals in general. I sympathize with Rodolfo, who says, I don't want to do renewals at all, because both of those feel like kind of like negative experiences overall. My goal has always been like, I want my customers to be happy to pay me again. And if I can't ensure that, then yeah, here's the refund. Leave me alone.
Yeah, that's true. But it's frustrating, particularly that you can't get the money back on the payment processor fees for PayPal and Stripe if you do a refund. So if you have sent them emails to warn them, you think, come on, take some responsibility, which is what Rodolfo referred to.
For sure. It gets worse. If you don't respond to their refund request quickly, then they'll just escalate it to a dispute. And now you have a dispute on your record. And that ends up making kind of like, you'll have a bad account reputation with Stripe or PayPal if you have too many disputes. Like it can get bad. So
true.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, like the dispute and customers threatening you basically. I mean, that's something that never happened to me in 3 years. Like maybe once I lost a dispute for some reason, but I had quite a few purchases, and it's sort of never happens because people, they pay that the first day, they know exactly how much it's going to be, and then they can totally forget about it for the remaining 15 years. They're going to be using that product, and it's better for me too. So that's the plan anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, it does sound nice not to get disputes. So it sounds like your kind of pricing amounts are largely based on the complexity of the product. My approach as a business person would be to do it based on the perceived value to the user, which is how much of an impact is it going to have on their sales if it's a WooCommerce mini plugin. But then Joss in the comments has put forward a third option, which is to charge by usage. And he says that's a refreshing way to do it. And then I thought of a fourth option as well, which is that a lot of people with one-off costs will then charge again for a major upgrade. So if you did have to completely rewrite a mini plugin, you could actually charge for that.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about those different competing models?
Yeah, which has happened, by the way, because then, WooCommerce at some stage, they rewrote their settings API, and now they're deprecating some jQuery stuff that I use basically everywhere. And, sometimes I need to redo stuff. And, the idea of, I think once also used to say, Campfire version 1 is today for sale. The day we develop version 2, you'll need to buy it again.
Yep.
So that's makes sense in case you're going to refactor you need to refactor the whole thing. But I'm trying once again to spend a lot of time thinking before I develop something and say, is this gonna potentially change in the next 2, 4, 5 years? If it does, it's also likely I'm gonna drop it and forget about it. I don't need to keep selling it. I can just discontinue it, and I don't need again to worry about people using it on old websites. They're purchased it once and it's fine, and I don't need to worry too much about that as well. Other things, like if I had to charge by usage, then I need a tracker. I need something to track licenses or something to track stuff like that, which means more coding, more time, more things that can break. And I definitely don't want to do that. In fact, I didn't say that those $40, $50 plugins that I sell, they are for unlimited websites as well. So you can install it on as many websites as you like, which is crazy. And that's the second thing about my crazy business, which is if I had to track APIs, licenses, installs, and connections, I would just go completely mental. Like that would definitely become a business, and I would definitely need 100% of my time to manage that. And I don't want that. So I've chosen all these things to make my life easier. And other way of pricing these things would be, of course, to triple the price. That's something that I've already done, by the way. So you were saying you should charge by the value that this plugin adds to WooCommerce, and I've done it for some of them. Like there's some stuff that WooCommerce doesn't have, and it's very much on demand. And the plugin used to cost $19, now it's $49. So I do these things, and I'm able to do these changes also because there are no active subscriptions. So I'm not gonna mess with my active subscribers and change the pricing, as loads of software companies are now doing. Oh, next year price is doubling. What do you want to do about it? And like that's crazy to me. Like you need always to keep the legacy pricing for the legacy customers if you are going to increase your prices. So lots of things I could be doing, lots of options I could be going for, but I just stick to my instinct and go with simple features, lifetime pricing, very little time for coding them, and hopefully very little time for for the admin part.
Yeah, I totally agree that you shouldn't increase the price to existing subscribers for a WordPress plugin. So if someone's got an active subscription with us, we would never change that. We use it as an incentive for them not to cancel their subscription, because if they cancel, they have to renew manually at the current price. So on the cancel page, we give them a note to say, are you aware that if you renew manually, it might be more expensive, and that kind of thing. So it's a bit of an incentive to keep that active. And you mentioned simple plugins again. That leads to a question from Ian, which is, what is your largest, most complex mini plugin, to help us think about what sort of complexity we're talking about?
Yeah. So I think the most complex is none of them. So once again, my my goal is trying to build simple and lean plugins. So if something is complex, I'm not going to develop it, first of all, or I'm going to outsource it to someone else. So that's the first thing. And my largest, or probably we're talking about most popular, that would be all my payment gateway conditional toggles. So disable payment gateway by category or by product or by shipping or stuff like that. And lately the sales by state report, which is apparently is huge in the US. If you're selling to loads of different states, you need to know exactly how much revenue you made in each one, because each one has a different tax rate. And they need a report every 3 months for the authority. And this plugin is helping them basically come up with a full WooCommerce report of all their sales in the US. And also this applies to other countries as well, if you wish to, and gives them a nice table. So at the end of the day, it's just looping through the WooCommerce orders and doing all the calculations and giving you a table. I mean, that's the most complex plugin that I have.
Yeah, and we got a couple more comments. From Niloy's, as a customer, I hate product subscription, but as an author, I love subscription. Haha. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's, I suppose, the challenge to us subscription people is to tie the subscription into the customer's needs through things like ongoing support and updates, and actually provide real value to them. Otherwise, it is kind of a con, isn't it?
It is. And like, for me is, as a customer, I hate subscriptions, and therefore, as an author, I don't do subscriptions, which
Yeah,
it's a
that's
little bit,
logic.
yeah, it's logic in a way that, you know, I try to respect the customer, given all the context that I'm doing many plugins, and it's not, you know, it's a different business from a standard plugin. But, you know, given that context, then I try to, you know, put myself into my customer's shoes and say, listen, I would really want to, you know, pay once, get it, forget it, and thank you so much. Maybe one day I'll buy a second one, or maybe one day I'll join your membership, or maybe another day I appreciate the value and I'll join your in-person conference. So it's an entry point, and who knows, you know, where that customer that enters with $19, you know, could get to. And, you know, that's also one thing that we didn't cover, which we link again with the once way of thinking now that they open source and they basically release those products for free, because they're entry points for their main businesses, for their subscription businesses. And, you know, for me, a small plugin could be an entry point for, you know, the WooCommerce membership or something else. So that's also something that it's worth mentioning.
Nice. I did want to follow up. Earlier, Katie was talking about several different ways that the one-time pricing would make sense. And Rodolfo, you also highlighted what Once was doing, where it's like you pay for the version. I've always really wanted to see a WordPress product do that, because I actually think it's really a very interesting idea. It feels like the middle ground between what you're doing and what subscription pricing folks do, which is essentially like plan that version 1, and maybe it's version 1.1, version 1.2, version 1.3. Like you're saying to folks, this is what I built and it works and it will solve your problems and you'll have success with it. And I'm going to support it. And you're going to pay $200 for it, let's say, because it's not a mini plugin, it's full functioning and it's got a lot going on. But as soon as it gets to version 2, if you want to benefit from the features that are in version 2, you're going to have to pay for version 2. I kind of like that as a middle ground between the two. I think the hard part is essentially it feels a lot like version 2 ends up being a whole new product. And now you've just told all of your existing customers that version 1 is kind of like a legacy product that you're not going to be developing on anymore. So you're trying to pitch to those existing customers that they should pay you again for a new product. And you're also telling the ones who don't pay you again that you're not going to support them anymore. So even though I like the idea, it also has obvious pitfalls as well, that I think could be problematic. But I think if you, Rodolfo, if you have to, like, let's take your per state plugin. If it becomes like, well, now version 2 is going to be not only a per state in the US, it's per state in Canada, it's per state in, per
city.
Yeah, whatever. Like you're greatly enhancing it. I would pitch that's a new product.
That's a new product. Yeah, it's going to be a different plugin totally. And, you know, even the conditional payment gateways, there is one product that does only conditional by category. There is one that does only conditional by product. While on the market, you will get a plugin that can do loads of different conditionals. So my thinking is that a store owner, a merchant, might only need one feature and doesn't need the other 99. So I'm trying to target those ones. And if they do need a second conditional or a second feature, they'll be packaged into a second plugin.
Yep. I love the conditional payment gateway thing too. I always wanted to build something like that for GiveWP because when people are choosing a donation that's $1,000, let's say it's $1,000, the credit card fees on that are high. The nonprofit is going to pay a big credit card fee. So if it was like as soon as they choose $1,000 or higher in the donation form, it switches to direct debit payment gateway only. Like here's your only payment options are these other options that are much more affordable and much cheaper. That would be a really smart way to. Anyway, that's a. If you want to start building
I already do.
solutions for GiveWP, there's an idea. So.
I have a conditional for order total as well. So that's another mini plugin. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Joss. What do you do with plugins that come redundant or part of core? Do you just close them down because you don't have subscribers to worry about?
That's really good. Actually, I have 2 of them, which have now become part of core, which is adding multiple products to the cart with a single URL in WooCommerce can now be done. But the core thing comes with lots of limitations. You cannot add products by SKU, for example. You cannot add multiple products to the cart and redirect to a different page, only to the checkout. So basically, I changed my features, my settings in the existing plugins, and still selling, which is crazy to me because WooCommerce just killed my plugin. But I found a different angle to sell it. And if a plugin actually becomes redundant one day, just stop selling, because I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to send an email to all my subscribers that I am stopping development excuse me, and it will be deprecated like Theme Forest style when you used to buy themes, and after 2 years, oh sorry, this theme is being discontinued. What are you going to do about it? And it's like, oh, now I have to switch theme. But in my case, it's easier. Plugins just, activate and deactivate, and you're done. So I'm not worried at all. And if something goes out of business, I can develop a new mini plugin and replace it with something else.
I think that's smart, and that reflects the message we're getting from Woo, which is that where they are adding more features to core, they're trying to keep it simple so that plugin companies can add additional complexity and flexibility. So they're not, so that actually fits quite well. Question from Ian: did the mini plugins come out of the snippets? Is it a way for you to monetize your blog traffic?
Absolutely, yes. So the idea was that I was already monetizing my blog traffic by sending people to online courses and memberships and stuff like that. But I wanted to have something in between, because my membership is above $500. So I wanted a product that could stand in between the $0 and the $500, and the mini plugin was the perfect product to have. And in fact, if you go to my blog post now, they're all followed by the main call to action, which is, oh, I also sell plugin about this code. Comes with extra features, with options that you can control from the admin, and here's the screenshot, here's the video. And one thing that I didn't mention, and which also makes sense, is that the landing page, the sales page of the mini plugin, it won't make sense unless it's one screenshot, 2 minutes video tutorial, and 3 FAQs. Because otherwise it means it's too complex, it takes me too much time, and the questions from customers are going to be 1,000, which doesn't make sense. So I think as mini plugins in a big way before writing the first line of code. Is this gonna cause troubles? Payment gateways, blocks, and stuff that is constantly changing, some stuff that is delicate. I'm not gonna go with it. I'm just gonna do simple customization. And if then WooCommerce releases a new block, then I'm gonna release a new plugin saying, oh, this is compatible with blocks.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we wrap up every show with a quick roundtable question. What is your best advice for anyone thinking about whether or not to sell with subscriptions? So in a nutshell, what should this audience take away with them from this conversation today? So Rodolfo, what would be your one piece of advice about that?
Well, I started as a game. So I wanted to do something fun. I wasn't into plugin development, and I started doing plugins and just publishing that and releasing that first plugin and put it up for sale and seeing the first customer purchasing that product gave me so much happiness. So what I would recommend to people is that why don't you try come up with a mini plugin yourself? I've actually been working with developers, and whenever they have an idea, they come to me and they sell their mini plugin on my website as well. So, the marketplace idea was always still there, and it's, behind the curtain. 4 or 5 of them actually have plugins on Business Bloomer. So I've been working with them on a commission basis. And I mean, putting up a mini plugin for sale on your website is not difficult. Promoting it is not difficult either. So why don't you try? Yeah. And then maybe one day you change your mind and go for subscriptions. But for now, that's the easiest thing that you can do.
And you would tell them, oh, you want to do subscriptions? Get off my website. You're all done.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
my best advice is that I feel like I've learned on this episode is when you're thinking about how you're going to do your pricing, according to Rodolfo, optimize for happiness. I love that. I think there's lots of ways to think through it. Optimize for your own happiness, optimize for the happiness of your customers, optimize for the happiness of your developers or your team if you have a developer and team and whatnot. But I think it's a great question to think about, and one that a lot of folks don't think about ever. They think about, how do I optimize revenue? How do I get the most money out of my customers? How do I be successful? How do I make millions of dollars? And oftentimes we think that if we do those things, then we'll be happy. But I think it's such great advice to actually think, no, let's talk about happiness first, and then make our decisions from there. I don't know if that's always the right choice. But it's something that everybody here can definitely learn from. So I appreciate that, Rodolfo.
Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what your goals are. So for me, I think it's quite clear that subscriptions on any type of plugin is the best way to maximize revenue. But Rodolfo has raised some really interesting points about the pitfalls of selling subscriptions on your enjoyment of your business. Your website has to be way more complex. Sell a mini plug, you can just stick a PayPal button on your site. You don't even need proper e-commerce, dead simple. You don't have to worry about renewal refunds. Disputes will be significantly less. There's lots of reasons, customer expectation for support. There's so many reasons. So I would say, decide on what your hard lines are with your business. Rodolfo's is he doesn't like subscriptions, and that decision became before any calculations. I think that's a really good principle to apply more generally, because a lot of us are building at least semi-lifestyle businesses. We want to be successful, but we also want to build it around our lifestyles. That's why many of us quit our traditional jobs in the first place and got into this and starting our own businesses. So decide on your hard lines and build your business around those.
Love it.
Well, that's a wrap. Rodolfo, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
Well, they can find me on businessbloomer.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, checkoutsummit.com, and so many other places. I mean, if you just Google Rodolfo WooCommerce, you're probably going to find just me. I never met any other Rodolfo in WordPress, to be honest, so I'm still waiting. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure. It was a great conversation. And what I always say is that, spending an hour talking about your business is always great. It's something that, we never do. So if there are, potential guests for this show, I definitely would like to tell them to come up and be part of this. And it's so useful. And I took notes. And why not? Next year, we might be talking about, a viable business.
I love it.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Or
that.
organizing events. I feel like you deserve to do a bit of a plug for Checkout Summit since it's new and tickets are on sale. Do you want to say what that is?
Yes. So after all these years of being online, and I always wanted to do something in person for WooCommerce developers and agencies and freelancers. So after talking to WooCommerce and to different people, I said, well, I'm gonna do it. So in April 2026, in Palermo, Sicily, Italy, I'm gonna run my first ever in real life conference, and that's Checkout Summit, and tickets are on sale now. WooCommerce are kindly headlining the sponsorship, and also potentially talking at it. We've got the first 4 speakers, and it's going to be a good 2 days of fun, relax, and happiness, as Matt said, as well as great content. And who knows, maybe in 5 months' time, because there are 5 months left, I'll probably be talking about my mini plugins and how it went and what's the future of my business. But definitely the in-person event is something that took me so many weeks of working, and I couldn't concentrate on mini plugins, but I'm happy about it because the in-person thing really makes me happy.
Love
Yeah,
it.
well, I'm looking forward to it. So if you're enjoying these shows, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. It's literally the easiest, freest way that you can support our work. And special thanks to Freemius again.
And next week, Katie and Ian will be talking with Kathy Darling about blocks, boundaries, and breakthroughs, product development in modern WooCommerce.
Yeah. And thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.